Okay, so what I want to talk about this morning is surprised by joy. But first of all, I want to ask you a question I think I know the answer to. Have you ever had one of those moments when you walk somewhere, or you drive somewhere, and you get there and you go, how did I get here? Like, I have no recollection of what I passed along the way or what I saw along the way. If you were, operating a major, like a big motor vehicle, you might be going, this was not good, right? Or have you gotten to the end of the day and someone says, well, how was your day? And you go, I can't even remember. I can't remember even what I did yesterday. I don't need to ask if anyone has felt that way. It's a common thing in the human condition that is how we feel. Now, I heard recently that some people trace this idea back to the advent of electricity. Okay? Apparently, I don't know if I buy into this, but apparently, once people had not gas lighting in their house and not candle lighting in their house, but electrical lighting in their house, all of a sudden the evening was extended. Instead of going to bed at, whenever it got dark, or slightly after, you could stay up as long as you wanted. And so people had to find a way to fill their time. So they used to fill their time by playing games. Games became very important and popular, or doing crafts, or sitting and talking to each other. Now, none of that feels like it should make you live in a slightly mindless state. But what also happened with the advent of electricity was radio, and then TV. And all of a sudden, especially in those evening hours, instead of participating and communicating during your entertainment, we became passive participants. We all know that one too, right? So the same feeling we get when we watch too many episodes in a row of The Nanny until 2 in the morning, not that I have done this, it's the same feeling we have when we drive or walk somewhere and we can't remember how we got there. We have simply stopped participating, being aware of our surroundings. We've stopped being aware of the moments of our life. Now, there are some things that can change that up pretty significantly, and we've all experienced this too. I walk home and to the church through Hyde Park, and I will tell you there are too many days when I don't remember what I saw in the park. I suddenly find myself on Hyde Park Boulevard near the church and I go, how did I get here? I've been running the tapes of what I'm going to do during the day in my head. But every now and then something will happen. About a week ago when we got that snow, I walked to church to work on the Monday, and the wind was blowing just a bit and the snow was just drifting off the trees and catching in the sunlight. And I had one of those moments where I was pulled out of my mind that was just not participating, not observing my own life. I had one of those moments where I was, what I call here, surprised by joy. Because that's what we feel in those moments, where we are suddenly aware of our lives, suddenly aware of our surroundings. We feel a true sense of joy, but also, I believe, a sense of connection. All of a sudden, I'm not in my head, I am in the natural world around me. And those moments are very precious to us. We can all probably think of a time that we stood on a cliffside and looked at a beautiful canyon, or some other time when nature simply pulled us up short. It's not only nature that does it. Sometimes seeing a brand new baby can give us that same sudden surprise of joy, pull us out of every other thought that's going on in our lives and make us see what is actually happening in this moment. I think it's not a surprise that mindfulness practices are becoming so big now, so important. I hope you notice, if you've ever tried a mindfulness practice, how much your ego voice fights against it. Does anyone experience that? Okay, your ego voice says, this is going to be so boring. This is so boring. Why are we bothering to do this? I am never going to become good at this. I do not have 15 minutes to do this. Yes, I have 15 minutes to sit and turn on the Weather Network, which is going to be wrong, so I know what to wear today, which will not be right. Not that I have a problem with the Weather Network. But our ego voice will continually try to sabotage our happiness. The ego voice wants nothing more than for us to continue to feel a sense of separation from each other, from the world, and from our lives. Look at what the collective ego voice has done to our natural world and resources. It has separated us. We're not interconnected. We can use this and do this any way we want. We don't have to worry about this. This is simply here for us to make use of. The ego voice is also always making a case against somebody, isn't it? This person did this. This person said this. I cannot deal with them if they continue to do this. The ego voice is continually telling us a story of separation. And there is no joy in that. There is no joy in that. And then a moment comes when suddenly something happens, maybe even between you and someone that you had written off as too impossible. Maybe they say something kind that surprises you. Or maybe somehow in a moment you just see their light, and then you have that moment of being surprised by joy. The joy of interconnectedness in love, of interconnectedness in light. Surprised by joy is the last thing the ego wants to have happen. So we're going to take on our egos this morning, okay? Billy, you have beside you some trays there. I'm going to ask you to hand out to everyone who's here one of the bags on the trays. I need somebody else to do this too. Mac has done everything. Who's handy? Joan, yay! That's good, because Joan does nothing around here, basically, so it's super good. Get Joan working for once. Just hand out a bag to everybody, Billy. Thank you so much. Billy's going to do one side. Joan will do the other side. And yeah, you're allowed to look at what's in the bag. You're even allowed to take out what's in the bag. What is in the bag is now going to be yours. Washed, sanitized, it's all good. We're good? Annie just looked surprised. If not by joy, then by bemusement. So as that's happening, and you guys are starting to see what's in the bag, most of you know now, what do you got? You've got an apple. Who can tell me, I don't know, one thing about an apple? What's the first thing that comes to mind when you say the word apple? Juicy? Yeah? Sorry? It has a star in the middle, Jackie. I love that. Super cool. You know, they're red, usually, that kind of thing. Okay? Sorry? Yeah, there you go. Okay, everyone got one? Everybody got an apple? Okay, I'm going to invite you to take out your apple. It's a Macintosh. It's an organic Macintosh from a local orchard. Take out your apple. Got it? Okay, we're going to have a quiet 3 minutes. Not going to play music. The quiet 3 minutes is going to be for you to spend time with your apple. I want you to look at the apple, feel the apple, smell the apple. I've got a serviette in there, so if you want to bite the apple, you can, wipe your mouth or whatever. Just take 3 minutes, starting now, and get to know your apple. And those of you who are watching this recording can do this with anything. Not only does it work with any piece of fruit, if you even want to just hold up your hand, spend 3 minutes looking at that, that'll work just fine. feels, I'm going to say, differently about their apple now than they did when they pulled it out of the bag? Can you put a word to that? Sorry? Oh, it brings back memories. Okay, so the apple is nostalgic for you, bringing back memories. Okay. Anybody else? Yes? Mindful, yeah. We really have, in a real way, changed our relationship to something super simple. Because I don't know about you, but I usually, just grab in the store whatever looks good that's not too expensive, pull it out of the fridge when I want it, cut it into pieces, and eat it, usually watching the TV. Do you know that in Vienna, it is illegal to walk through the city drinking a takeout cup of coffee? The reason for that is they hold coffee in such high regard that you have to sit and be mindful as you drink your coffee. We don't live in that kind of world. We live in a world that values convenience of fast food. Fast food. We have so many things that are grab and go. We have this idea that there's always something better about things that we can take and consume quickly. And sometimes, for sure, there is. But we also lose out on what you just had, an opportunity to connect in a simple way with something in your world. Now, why am I talking about this? Other than it's the week of joy in Advent. And I'm going to say that I'll bet every one of you felt just a tiny bit of joy as you looked at your apple. And I'm also going to say you'll feel even more if you think about your apple's story. It's so joyful to think about someone growing the apple, tending the apple, picking the apple, all of the things that had to go into you getting your particular apple. And somebody said it's like snowflakes. Who said? The only one of your apple. But I also chose it for this week because if you remember, I've talked about the stories of the Bible and how particular they are. How there are no wasted words. Every image matters, and every word has a purpose, just like the murals that Philip created for us. There's no filler, and that absolutely goes for the Christmas story. So in the Christmas story, there are two groups of people, aside from Mary and Joseph, who are surprised by joy. In this case, it's the joy of coming to the manger and finding this baby who's going to be a beacon of light and hope for the world. And those two groups are the shepherds, and then a little later, the kings. And what did they do? They look up into the sky and they see the star. The shepherds also see angels. Angels singing for the shepherds, the star leading them to Bethlehem, the kings following the star from so far away right into Jerusalem, where they then have to stop and ask for directions for the next part. So we know that. And we know that they were surprised by joy. But the question is, why wasn't everyone else? Why wasn't everyone in Jerusalem sitting on their rooftops looking at the star? Why wasn't the manger crowded with people from Bethlehem who saw this amazing star shining in the sky? Why weren't there crowds of people from all over who had seen the star glowing and come to find out what it meant, who had had that experience of being surprised by the miraculous, by the connection with the divine in the world? What happened to everybody else? And as I thought about this week, I thought, the difference between the shepherds and the kings and everyone else is that the kings and the shepherds were watching. The kings, of course, were astrologers, we're told. So they would be watching the sky, watching the heavens to see what the divine was doing in the world. And they saw the star. The shepherds made it their business to look around them, to see where the wolves are, to know where the next pasture was going to be, to look for the way that the sheep had to go, and to be aware, even at night, where every one of their sheep were. The shepherds had to be attentive all the time, awake to their world, connected to what was happening around them. So it's no wonder, is it, that while no one in Jerusalem or Bethlehem or anywhere along the way seemed to notice this amazing, glowing entrance of the divine into the world, those who were watching did. We all hope for that moment of being surprised by joy, particularly at Christmas time. We remember things from our past. Nancy says she's feeling nostalgic over her apple, that remind us of those moments where we felt connected, perhaps to the people we love, perhaps to other people. This is a time of connection, of giving and generosity and kindness. But we can have that feeling at any moment. Your ego voice will tell you it doesn't matter. Your ego voice will tell you not to look for it. Your ego voice will tell you that it's boring, that apple. But that's not what the spiritually awakened life is about. The spiritually awakened life is simply giving ourselves moments now and then to pause, to sit in this beautiful place, to see the light coming through the windows, to glance again at these murals, which still and will always, I think, take my breath away, to hear an ancient story that reminds us that if we are not being surprised by joy, if we are not feeling the presence of divine light, if we are not living in wonder in our lives, if we're missing it somehow, it's not because it's not all there for us. It's simply because we have forgotten to stop and look and stay open and ask what God's doing in the world now and see, where is the kindness going to be shown to me today? Where can I give the kindness to someone else? How do I bring the light so that we live in a life which is sometimes, often maybe distracted, but where we remember that even holding something as small and ordinary and miraculous as an apple can remind us of the divine connection we live in this world, and can fill us and nurture us and invigorate us and give us again that feeling of Christmas anytime as we're surprised by joy. Thanks, everybody. What are we doing? Speaking of surprised by joy, you have, I think everybody, I hope everyone does. If you don't, we'll give you one. Something also super simple. Paper dove cut out by Joan and by Peggy with a prayer on it. Anthony's going to play some music, and this is our annual tradition. We're going to socially distance up the aisle, place the dove on the tree, and what a great moment to have a moment of joy. Thanks, Anthony.